Recently we got our official announcement of the Persona 3 Reload expansion pass, and ever since there has been a lot of discussion about this online. And I personally also had some thoughts on this whole situation. I already talked about it on my Twitter, but I thought I have a YouTube account as well, maybe I'll make a small video on it and go a little bit more in depth about my thoughts on it. And if you're interested in more discussions like this one, or reviews on JRPGs and other games, be sure to check out my channel as well, I'd really appreciate it, but let's just immediately get into this. For those who maybe aren't up to speed, during the most recent Xbox Partner Showcase, Atlus announced an expansion pass for Persona 3 Reload. This expansion pass is going to be divided into 3 waves of content, the first one being a background OST pack that's already released at this time, the second one is going to be releasing in May and it's going to be a costume pack, and the third and final DLC will be a story expansion that's releasing in September. It's a remake of episode Aegis, The Answer, which is then obviously the main draw of this whole expansion pass. But that's then where we get into the discussion or the controversy around this expansion pass. One of the main topics that people are not happy about is just the fact that this is an expansion pass and that you can't get any of this content separately. And that is very understandable, since if we're being honest, Wave 1 and 2 are simply not worth the money. This pass costs €35, $35, and judging by their other games, their other DLC releases, Atlus usually prices costume packs at around €3 and OST packs at around 4. Judging by that, we can then see that Wave 1, according to Atlus, has a value of $8, being 2 OST packs, and Wave 2 has a value of around $7, being an OST pack and a costume pack, which then makes the answer $20, which is honestly a very, very good price for the answer in my opinion. But the problem is that that is not what we're going to be paying for it. You can only get the answer if you also pay for Wave 1 and 2, which is then 35. So that is definitely kind of overpriced. I personally don't really care about these OST packs, I don't really care about the costume packs, but I do really care about the answer, and it's very scummy that I'm then forced to pay for this other content that I just don't care about. Another part of the controversy is the fact that this won't be included in stuff like the Digital Deluxe Edition, the Premium Edition. Those editions are already very, very expensive, and it's kind of an industry standard at this point to give the players all content if they're paying like $200 for it. And then the final main point of discussion is that during pre-release discussions, the developers would often come out, and Atlus would often come out and say that Persona 3 Reload on launch will be the complete Persona 3 experience. And because of that, a lot of people are now saying that that was also just a lie, because the answer is announced now, so if the answer is part of the complete experience that we were promised on launch, why wasn't it there on launch? Why is it being sold separately now? Because at first they said the complete experience would be the base game, $70, that's it. Now it's $70 for the base game plus $35 for the expansion pass, which is $105 for that complete experience that we were promised. And those are then the 3 main reasons of why people just aren't happy right now and why the expansion pass is getting review bombed on Steam. But to play devil's advocate for a second, according to a very reliable insider and leaker Midori, and according to interviews from the developers, the answer was apparently considered and worked on during development of Persona 3 Reload. But before the game was even announced, development on the answer had been put on hold, or it got basically cancelled because of the scale of Persona 3 Reload and because of time and budget restrictions put on from Sega. Sometimes things like that just happen during game development. Things get put on the cutting floor, sometimes they have to scale down because games are getting very, very expensive to make, and that's just kind of a part of game development. But since then, they of course announced the game, and since day one, there was a massive outrage online of people really, really wanting both the answer and female protagonist, which then made Sega and Atlus reconsider of, okay, we already worked on the answer, we have a base for it. let's finish development on this and let's release it as a DLC. It's basically the fan demands that made them reconsider. By that time, the main portion of development on Persona 3 Reload was also done already, they were already in the localization stages, so the answer went back into development, and now the answer is in its final stages of development and it's about to start the localization process. Now, take that with a small grain of salt, of course. During these interviews, the developers and Atlus can kind of say whatever, but to me, that would make sense timeline-wise, and those circumstances would also kind of make me understand why it wasn't there at launch and why it's being sold separately. Something like the answer isn't a small undertaking, and as I said earlier, sometimes things just end up getting cut during development, but if they already had that base for it, it would make sense that after fan demands, they would consider picking that up again. But that of course still doesn't forgive the fact that you can't buy the answers separately, especially because Wave 1 and 2 just aren't worth the money. If they really want this to be worth $35, they should have at least added more to it. Instead of just having more Persona 5 and 4 songs, why not add songs from other Atlus games, or the original Persona 3 OST, or the OST from Persona 1 and 2, or the dancing remixes? Instead of just adding the Velvet outfits, why not include the dancing outfits? Like, look at how many outfit DLCs Persona 5 had. Or instead of adding only costumes and OSTs, why not add something interesting like challenge battles or something? That's not that much work, and at least it would justify the price more. But at the same time, no matter how bad or how scummy this might seem from Atlus, it's honestly way better than what we're used to. Because for those who don't know, or for those who weren't around at the time, their previous Persona game, a little game known as Persona 5, had it a lot worse in my opinion. Like, imagine being around in 2016. You buy Persona 5 for the PS4 or the PS3 for $60. If you want all of the DLC for it, that brings the price from 60 up to 156 euros and 80 cents. Yes, I just calculated that. If I would buy, even today, Persona 5 Vanilla plus all DLC, that's how much you would spend on it. The DLC alone, just costume packs and OST packs and Persona packs, is more expensive than the base game. And 3 years later, in 2019, they released Persona 5 Royal for full price again, $60 with no upgrade path. If you want that one arc that was added at the end, you have to pay 60 on top of the 160 that you already spent if you wanted to get all DLC. And then 3 years later again, they released Persona 5 Royal again with a next-gen version. Imagine if you've been itching to replay the game, but you want to play it on PS5, you want to play it in 4K 60 FPS, well, time to buy the game again for 60 because there's no upgrade path or anything, even if the game is 3 or 6 years old at that point. Atlus is charging full price for that one. So if you look at it like that, the full Persona 3 experience might be pretty pricey at 105, but if you compare that to Persona 5, which was almost 300, even if you ignore all of the costume packs and OST packs and Persona packs because they're not really vital to the experience, for Persona 3 the full experience would be 105. Base game plus expansion pass, a complete game made in 2024 for both last gen PlayStation 4 and current gen PS5. Compare that to Persona 5, which for many people was 60 for base game, 60 for Royal, and then if you want the next gen version, it's another 60. So yeah, I do think that this is a massive improvement. I just really prefer Atlus's new way of doing it. Release the game, release an expansion pass, and that's it. Instead of releasing the game, releasing a shit ton of DLC, releasing day 1 DLC, all of that stuff, and then releasing the game again at full price with new content that could have been a DLC. So while they're definitely not there yet, this is 100% a step in the right direction. And it does give me hope for the future of Persona and just the future of Atlus in general. Now though, there is one more thing that I want to mention, because this entire situation did bring back the FeMC discussion once again, because of course it did. Some people have even regained hope, but some people have also completely lost all hope, because in that same interview they also mentioned that they were considering to add FeMC to the game at some point, but that landed on the cutting floor very early in development, and I honestly just can't see them reviving that. An epilogue like The Answer is a lot more manageable compared to a whole second playable character, and while I would absolutely love for her to be added, don't get me wrong, more content is always good, I just don't see it. If they were gonna do it, we would have already known by now. The team most likely moved on to something else as well already, be it Persona 6 or another remake or whatever, and while FeMC would definitely make the money back, I don't doubt that, a new project would also make the money back, and it's probably a better investment for them to work on something new instead of them just reworking Persona 3 for all of eternity. That's it though. TLDR, I do think that it's a bit overpriced. I especially just don't like that we're forced to buy the expansion pass if we want The Answer, but looking at the history of Atlus DLC practices, I'm honestly not surprised. What I am surprised at is how intensely people are reacting to this though, but that's also a good thing. It's good that people are speaking up, because I really don't want the forced expansion pass to become the norm. You do with your money what you want, of course. If you want to boycott this and you don't want to buy it because of these reasons, go ahead, I respect that. If you're excited for The Answer and you want to buy it, you can also go ahead and do that. I'm probably gonna be buying it as well, but maybe I'll wait for a sale, we'll see. I just think it's dumb if people judge each other for what they decide to spend their money on, so I'm not going to be preaching anything in this video. I just thought that it was an interesting discussion point, and I also haven't seen many people compare this to the Persona 5 situation, which is in my opinion pretty important context. But that's it, I'm gonna go back to working on my Persona 3 Reload review, because this was originally gonna be a part of that video, but while writing the script, I honestly thought that this deserved its own little video, which is why we're here now. Be sure to subscribe though, so you don't miss that video, and if you like the video, be sure to leave a like. Also, definitely leave a comment, as this is 100% a point of discussion, and I really want to see where you guys are at with this. But that is it for me, thank you so much for watching, hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.